Well, we just got our ass kicked. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Pancast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. That sucked. Grossi, and today we are going to break down the Green Bay Packers loss to the Detroit Lions 34-20 on Thursday Night Football in a game that is so crushingly disappointing, but also not completely surprising. And there's so much to break down, and there's a rant coming. I know there's a rant coming because I feel it in my bones because so many things went wrong. And I think just being in the chat where we had so many people in there, which is really great. I appreciate that. Going on social media, there are legitimately times where I feel like I'm watching a different game than everybody else. And I don't mean that in of like, oh, he knows more. But if you look at this game and go, Jordan Love, he's the problem. Quay Walker, he's the problem. Joe Barry, he's the only problem. Because, let it be known, he is part of the problem. Matt LaFleur, he's the problem. Also part of it. That offensive line, it's all of it. This was a team effort in sucking. If there was a just sucking ass award, we would get it. And not in like the fun way that maybe you try because your significant other wants to mess around one night. We sucked. That first half was one of the worst performances I have ever seen as a Packers fan. We got our ass kicked by a team that was more hungry, dominant, and I know, listen, the Packers have a ton of injuries, right? David Bakhtiari, heartbreakingly, had to have another surgery on his knee, is out for the entire season, got put on IR, and we're just going to have to deal with that. Elton Jenkins, still out. Jair Alexander, out. Devondre Campbell, out. And it showed, because that offensive line tonight against a very good pass rush from the Lions was awful. Jordan Love was sacked 5 times. I don't even know how many times he was pressured, but it was a lot, and it was constant. The Packers were backed up in their own territory. By the time they got to third down, it was 3rd and 25 a lot of the times. The Packers had no answers for the Lions, and it started with an interception by Rudy Ford, and I was like, yay! And then it went downhill so fast. People are looking at, why didn't the Packers run the ball more? Aaron Jones was active. Well, guess what? The offensive line couldn't block anybody. We weren't running the football. How much weren't we running the football? We ran it for a total of 12 times, 2 of those from Jordan Love, for 27 yards. It was horrific. We were one-dimensional. But again, I want to make sure something is very, very clear. The Detroit Lions, who blew up Bijan Robinson last week, you know, the guy that we couldn't stop against the Falcons, it was always going to be difficult to run the football against this team. And we didn't even attempt to. Jordan Love was under siege, and he did not have his greatest game. And it seemed like in the third quarter, they were playing better. But at the end of the day, the Packers were outmatched on offense, defense, coaching, all of it. It was just horrifically bad. And if you want to start pointing some fingers, we can look at Joe Barry. Because again, for the second time in 4 weeks, the Packers have allowed over 200 rushing yards. They only gave it to Gibbs 8 times. David Montgomery, 32 carries for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. Unacceptable. And it was bad. They could do whatever the hell they wanted on the ground. Jared Goff, 19 for 28, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was only sacked 2 times because their offensive line is really, really good. And the defense was exhausted in that first half. And then later, when it mattered, they weren't able to get it done. Quay Walker with a really bad penalty. And people are asking me in the stream, is it time we cut Quay Walker? Quay Walker is one of our best defensive players. Yes, last year he had 2 boneheaded penalties, which he's learned from. He jumped over the center, and whether you agree with it of being a penalty or not, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't do those things, but you're not cutting Quay Walker. So yes, Joe Barry's run defense is hot effing garbage. Our offense in that first half, hot effing garbage. No offensive line, no run game. Aaron Jones, honestly, shouldn't have even suited up for this game because we barely utilized him. Even in the passing game, we barely utilized him. The Packers struggled today. And at the very end, if you're a Packers fan and you're sitting there and you saw all Lions fans just filling Lambeau Field cheering, you know how you fix that problem? Win. And right now, for the past over 700 days, Dan Campbell has outcoached Matt LaFleur, and they have kicked our ass. And again, this is where it was not so surprising, because the Lions came into Lambeau Field week 18, and they had nothing to play for except spite, and we had everything to play for to try and get into the playoffs, and they kicked our ass. And listen, it's not all Jordan Love's fault. The offensive line was really, really rough. We're banged up. And I think that this is the growing pains that their Packers are going to go through. But if we want to talk about insanity and doing things over and over again, that run defense has not gotten any better. And that is embarrassing. I mean, hell, you want to talk about how bad that offense was? In the first half, the Lions had 284 yards. We had 21. 21. Outrageous. This was Jordan Love's first game where he was sacked more than a single time, which is a testament to how good the O-line has been, but not tonight against a really good pass rush, and we are just decimated on that line. The Packers had no answers for the Lions, and any attempt at a comeback was whiffed out from a bad penalty, which, by the way, the Packers continued, especially early in that game, shooting themselves in the foot. They looked like an undisciplined young team. And just some of the coaching decisions and the play calling have you scratching your heads, and 3 and out after 3 and out. The Packers, they were not good tonight. And they went up against a really good Lions team. That's how you can break it down. I don't know how many times you can say it. The Lions dominated the Packers, but they've been dominating the Packers. They are really good in the trenches. They can run the ball well. They obviously can pass it. They have a bunch of threats. This is without Jamison Williams. And even though the Packers are a very injured football team, which they get some leeway there, that first half is unacceptable. And the way that that game went, yeah, if you're a Packers fan, you are not happy after tonight. And the thing about Quay Walker is the guy was our leading tackler tonight. He had 10 solo tackles, 19 total. And he made one really bad mistake. He didn't push a trainer or anything like that. So we could just get rid of that right away. And the Packers defense was really good in the second half for the most part. Of course, that fourth quarter, they weren't so great. They allowed the Lions to run time off the clock. And then again, that penalty really killed us. But the Packers also put themselves in an insane hole. They were down 27-3 in the first half. That's going to be difficult for any team to come back from, let alone a quarterback who is in his 5th overall start. So where do the Packers go from here? Because let's talk about that. Because their season's not over. It's not all doom and gloom. They don't have Dave Bakhtiari for the year. Elton Jenkins, who knows when he's going to come back. The Packers now have some rest because they don't play until the following Monday against the Raiders. Then they have a bye. So they have time to get healthy and get all their weapons back. And I think the Packers are still going to be a competitive team this year. However, this is a season for evaluation. It's an evaluation of Jordan Love. It's an evaluation of that offense and who is going to be on this team moving forward. And Matt LaFleur was very pissed off in that press conference and talking about all the things that need to be changed. Well, guess what? One of the things that needs to be changed is your defensive coordinator. And again, I'm not even putting all of this loss on Joe Barry, but between the personnel who is not executing, because there are players to blame, and the defensive coordinator who is allowing 200 yards of rushing yet again in 4 weeks, twice. This is a problem, and it's a problem that we've been seeing. Special teams, they didn't even look good. Keyshawn Nixon finally had a decent punt return. He hasn't been performing well, and that's why I'm saying it's not just one aspect that is going wrong. It's everybody, and I know it's nice and easy to point at one person or one thing and go, they're the problem. I had people in the stream calling to bench Love, to cut Quay Walker, to get rid of Joe Barry, to do this, that. And it's just like, guys, all of it is bad. All of it. And by the end of this season, my true one hope is is that the Packers realize who is hurting this football team and they move on from them. Because when Dave Bakhtiari is on the field, he's one of the best left tackles in the game. I don't know if he's going to play another snap for the Packers. I know he's not talking about retirement, but next year, would not be surprised if he gets traded. But the issue is the Packers need to protect and call the best plays for their young QB. And tonight, against a vicious pass rush, they weren't able to do that. Now, I want to give all of the props to the Lions, because the Lions came in, especially Aiden Hutchinson and some of these guys, and they dominated this game. They made Jordan Love uncomfortable. There was only a few snaps in that second half where he looked like he actually had some time, and they played really good football. They picked off Jordan Love twice, and truly they were just outcoached. And for the hot second you thought a comeback was possible, the Lions put together a long, sustained drive, and they just played like they didn't respect the Packers defense. And all night, they did not have to. So the Packers fall to 2-2. The Lions are 3-1 and are atop of the NFC North. It is not over for the Packers because, hell, the Vikings and Bears haven't won a game yet. And I think the Packers still, when they get healthy, can be better. And I know the Packers are going to go through some growing pains. We saw that tonight. And until the Packers can match the Lions' intensity, play calling, coaching, and also offensive and defensive abilities, this kind of stuff is going to continue to happen. So let's hope that a nice break leads to some healthy players returning and they fix what needs to be fixed. Because right now, after tonight, there's a good amount that needs to be changed. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You guys saw me at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.